Roman roads still span Europe, North Africa, and the Mediterranean. Its legal codes and architecture form the basis of modern Western life, creating a footprint so massive it remains visible 2,000 years after the Republic fell. To a modern observer, Rome's rise can seem like a fixed point in history. We look at the ruins of the Roman Forum and assume this power was always destined to dominate the ancient world. But we view this history through a lens of survival. The success of the Roman project hides the years when its existence was uncertain, and its future was dictated by forces it could not yet control. Long before Rome ruled the sea, another civilization held that power. They possessed greater wealth and a wider reach, and they came closer than any other rival to ending the Roman story before it truly began. That civilization was Carthage. Founded by Phoenician settlers on the coast of North Africa, it sat at the crossroads of the ancient world's most active shipping lanes. While early Rome was a regional power fighting land wars in Italy, Carthage built its strength through commerce and shipping. Its leaders understood that whoever controlled the Mediterranean trade routes held the keys to geopolitical power. By the 3rd century BCE, this strategy produced immense prosperity. Carthage controlled the flow of silver and gold across the sea, allowing them to finance massive fleets and elite mercenary armies that far surpassed the resources of a developing Rome. But as Rome expanded its own borders, the two powers began to compete for the same strategic ports. In a shared sea, the growth of one increasingly looked like an existential threat to the other. The conflict began over Sicily. The island held significant economic and military value, triggering the First Punic War. At the start, the Carthaginian navy was the most sophisticated force in the Mediterranean, while Rome had almost no experience at sea. Rome responded with a strategy of rapid adaptation. They captured a Carthaginian ship and used it as a blueprint to build their own fleet. By learning the technology of their enemy, the Romans secured a victory that no one in the ancient world expected. The defeat left Carthage humiliated. According to ancient accounts, a young boy named Hannibal stood before a sacrificial fire with his father and made an oath of eternal hostility toward the Roman Republic. That childhood vow transformed a trade dispute into a personal quest. For Hannibal, the rivalry with Rome was no longer about territory, it was about the survival of one civilization over the other. When war returned, Hannibal chose a strategy that ignored the predictable naval routes. He decided to lead a direct land assault on Italy by marching an army across the European continent. He led tens of thousands of soldiers and dozens of war elephants through the frozen passes of the Alps. The crossing was a logistical nightmare. Thousands of men froze or fell from the narrow mountain trails. Despite the losses, Hannibal's force emerged in northern Italy. The Roman Senate was caught off guard. They had assumed the mountains were an impassable barrier that protected their homeland from northern invasion. Hannibal had bypassed the Republic's physical fortifications. By bringing the war to the Italian countryside, he struck at the psychological security of the Roman people. Inside Italy, Hannibal began a campaign of tactical brilliance. At the Battle of Cannae, his army surrounded and destroyed the largest force Rome had ever assembled. In a single day, tens of thousands of Roman citizens were killed. News of the defeat triggered panic within the Senate. Longtime allies began to defect to the Carthaginian side, and the deeply held belief that Rome was invincible dissolved. With the Roman military in ruins, the path to the city of Rome was open. Yet Hannibal did not march on the capital. Historians still debate his reasons, questioning if he lacked the resources for a long siege or if he underestimated the Republic's resilience. Whatever the cause, Hannibal's hesitation gave Rome its only path to survival. It gave them time to regroup and find a new way to fight. Rome refused to surrender. They avoided direct battles with Hannibal in Italy, fighting a war of attrition while they worked to rebuild their military forces and study their enemy's tactics. A young Roman commander named Scipio realized that defeating Hannibal in Italy was nearly impossible. Instead, he carried the war directly to the gates of Carthage, forcing the Carthaginian Senate to recall Hannibal to defend his home. The two legendary commanders finally faced one another at the Battle of Zama. Scipio used Hannibal's own tactics against him, neutralizing his war elephants and breaking the Carthaginian lines. The Roman victory at Zama stripped Carthage of its empire. The initiative shifted permanently, and the civilization that once terrified the Mediterranean began a long, slow decline. Even in decline, the memory of Hannibal's campaign haunted the Roman psyche. This paranoia eventually led to the Third Punic War, a conflict fought not for territory, but for the permanent removal of a rival. Rome ordered the leveling of the city. Every building was dismantled, the surviving population was sold into slavery, and the Carthaginian state was extinguished. Along with the foundations, Rome suppressed Carthaginians' historical records and cultural texts. The perspective of the victors became the only account of the conflict to survive for the next 2,000 years. This was more than a military defeat. It was a systematic effort to erase a civilization from the memory of the ancient world. We view Rome as the inevitable center of antiquity because they were the ones who survived to tell the story. They controlled the libraries and the monuments, making their rise seem like a law of nature rather than a series of narrow escapes. The Punic Wars are a study in the fragility of human legacy. An empire that once dictated the terms of trade across a sea became a footnote in the history written by its conquerors. History is never preordained. The Roman Empire was built over the ruins of a rival that, for a few decisive years, almost won.